Hi there. Thanks for downloading, listening to, and watching the Lean Into Art Cast, a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together and take on various topics that occur to one when endeavors on these explorations of communicating visually. We think hard about visual storytelling, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist. The other host is...
Hi, I am Rob Stenzinger, a user experience and game designer.
Good to see you again, Rob.
Yeah, good to see you too, Jerzy.
How you been?
Oh, the normal adventures, doing the day job, doing side projects, dad and husband, all that kind of stuff. Hats, desires, constraints, Same as I think a lot of the folks who listen to the show. Desires.
Hats. Whoops, sorry. My YouTube video, the preview stream started playing while we were talking and was piping in the audio from that.
I didn't. I thought I went into my own head recursively at that point. I was like,
sorry about that. Okay. Yes, I assume. I think it's a safe assumption that a lot of the people who listen to and participate in the stuff that we make are in similar situations where you're juggling a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And, as do you, right?
Sure. Yes.
Different
cartoonist
nature.
and teaching artist, which means that I'm making comics for a living and teaching comics for a living, and both require time, right? And you know what else requires time? Being a human being, being a husband, being a friend. Those things take time too, and sometimes those things that all demand time all want it from the same bucket, and then we deal with those constraints. But that's not the topic this week, though. The topic this week is reading, watching, playing, and reflecting on what we do to unplug and relax, with a special little twist of because as this episode is recorded, it is August of 2018, late August. We're in the third week, and I noticed that this is the back to school sales are starting in all the stores, which excites me because I like looking for cool, novel things to draw with, things to draw on and draw with, and school supplies is one of those smorgasbords of that. So it got me thinking, hey, maybe we should do an episode where we check in with what art tools we're using a little bit, and how do we negotiate all those frictions to find time to draw for the pure pleasure of drawing, if we even get to do that at all. But first, reading, watching, playing. What do you say?
I think it sounds fun. Let's go there.
All right. Then how about, I'm going to pull up your video because we got to see what your face does when this happens. Yes, there we are. We're in topic territory. Reading, watching, playing, because you know what? It is, something that I feel like is a never-ending struggle is reminding ourselves that grit and hard effort are not the only part of making things and being a visual communicator and storyteller, right? There's also, how do you recharge? How do you pull back and unplug and unwind so that you have more thoughtful attention when you show up to do the work again?
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if it's, I think of different times I've explored and tried to deal with, juggling my creative projects and just the pure pleasure side things, right? Interests and hobbies. That I feel like I've gone through different phases, and sometimes I still jump through these different things where sometimes it sounded like you were implying that maybe that you could look at that as an optional thing, right? Having leisure time is that's a luxury. And
right.
I suppose it is, in a way. It's nice to appreciate it and enjoy the privilege, but it's a lot. Sometimes it's a privilege that we don't grant ourselves as easily. And I know I've done that. But I don't know. We've been doing some reading, watching, playing episodes for a little while now. So I think at the very least, we've been trying to get better at it.
Get better at it, model it, and use it as an opportunity to invite the leaners to share with us what they've been reading, watching, and playing as well. And that goes for everybody who's watching the live chat or the live stream right now. but also, after the fact on our Patreon feed if you want to chime in with things that you've been reading, watching, playing. But you want to go first, Rob?
Oh, sure.
I see some cool things on your lists.
All right. So, all right. So one thing I'm a huge fan of, and I think I've mentioned it before. It's a magazine and a website called Make Magazine. It's in recent years in I don't know, both side projects and in my day job. I've entered a space where I need to and want to explore more physical creative stuff beyond the 2D, right? So yeah, I'd love natural media and markers and pencils and all that kind of stuff. But you have we're in an era now where there's cheap physical computing becoming more and more accessible because of the reduced expense, and you have things like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and other platforms that it's suddenly really approachable to play and or make stuff that maybe solves problems in your environment. Maybe not the most critical ones, but you know, uh, maybe they are more serious. Like, um, let's see, building something that's like measuring water quality, and then if you use that in some way for like a local stream or what have you. Not that I've done that, but like you encounter these more serious projects as well. But a lot of times I'm just enamored by making stuff move or blink or make cool sounds. And anyway, my appetite and excitement is far more I guess it outmatches my sort of budget for time to build the stuff, but it's just a never-ending source of inspiration and ideas for the stuff that I do get around to poking at, building and playing with. Yeah, and that's and gosh, those kinds of projects, dealing with Arduino and Raspberry Pi, that's just one subset of all the kinds of things that Make Magazine deals with, which, I mean, they're exploring stuff like anything from like working with tools like woodshop tools, hand tools and of various types and whatnot, 3D printing. They just it's it's a neat place to be just exposed to a bunch of different media. So and and with the assumption that not everyone needs to run around and afford a 3D printer, right? I mean, they have lots of resources to help you become aware of and connect with, like local make spaces where you can typically, for a very affordable price, get access to tools that help you accomplish these projects. So it's just a much like getting excited and inspired by the comics community. It's neat to have a window into that world, and Make Magazine's pretty darn robust window.
So it's makezine.com, which I had up on the screen earlier. For a few seconds, I had a different thing. It was somebody who was taking advantage of Make Magazine as a search term, and it was like, make your own digital magazines. No, that's not what I wanted.
Keyword squatting.
That's fun. Mooshin Girls in the chat said, rereading Rat Queens, Battle Chasers, John Byrne's Alpha Flight run. Now, John Byrne's Alpha Flight run is pretty darn good, and I think I've told the story before about how the first John Byrne comic I ever read was an Alpha Flight, where Talisman, Shaman's daughter, goes back into the Wild West through some accident of Talisman's magic satchel, if I remember right. And there's these cowboys who are holding all these people. Not cowboys, are like bandits who are holding those people hostage in the Wild West. And this demon comes along and offers them wealth and women and all the things that bandits usually want. And then when it takes them over, like this beautiful woman's face turns into like this giant shark mouth, and she bites on the cowboy's face, and then like he has like a shark mouth, and this passing this demonic possession. And up to this point, I had only read Silver Age DC comics, like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, Superboy, Legion of Superheroes, all these really like Kurt Swan, squeaky clean superhero stories. And to see this, I was like, I don't know if I like comics anymore. This is scary. This is intense. But yeah, Byrne's Alpha Flight was really intense in a lot of the right ways. So also read Science Comics Rockets and loved it. Oh, thank you so much for getting it. That means a lot to me that, you'll not only believe in this thing that we make called Luna's Art, but you also check out our other stuff as well. And one more I got to read from Mushin Girl on that note. Playing introduced my granddaughter to This Panda Needs You today. She isn't there yet, but liked the images.
That's fun. Thank you. That's awesome.
Let's see. What am I reading, watching, or playing? So I got a recommendation. I was just at a series of talks tonight where a children's librarian was talking about reading children's books for pleasure. And let me pull up my screen share so I can talk about this book. It's a book that I like to revisit every once in a while. It's a series. I don't know if you've heard of Esther Averill's Jenny Cat Club books.
No, I haven't.
So I like cats. I like cats a lot. And this is a series of, it's about cats who talk to each other, but it's not like warriors. It's like literally like, it's just like cats who live in New York and like they're just doing cat things. And this particular book I got pulled up is Captains of the City Streets. It's about two best buddy cats who just roam the city streets, New York streets, and look for handouts because they're strays. They're just like, what do you call it? Tramps, right?
Mm.
And they go on a journey to this neighborhood because their dream is to have a house of their own. Sinbad and the Duke are two buddies, and they just want to find a house of their own, a little house of their own, and then they'll just live off of handouts. But they go to this place where like this old cat warren, there's no handouts there. Nobody gives out handouts. As a matter of fact, they chase you away with rocks and sticks if you go there. And like we don't care. We're gonna go anyway. And then they come upon this group called the Cat Club, where it's just cats who all just hang out together. And like there's one cat who likes to dance a lot, and then there's another cat who has a really pretty voice, and then there's Mr. President who's like the most regal of all the cats. So it's like magical realism in that we're assuming these cats can all talk to each other, but it's not fantasy in that it's like it's very rooted in the real world, and it's like sort of giving personality and voice to what cats normally do.
And so this is a series.
This is a series. Yes,
Okay.
There's more in the series. There's Jenny and the Cat Club. There's the School for Cats. Jenny goes to a school for cats and gets chased around by Pickles the fire cat. Jenny goes to sea right here. So you can find these all mostly at your local library. Like there's parts that get like unreal where like they dance the sailor's hornpipe together, but also the drawings are extremely charming. And the writing style it's meant for young people, but it's sweet and earnest and straightforward. And I love revisiting these books from time to time.
Super fun. I was thinking about some things that I've been playing lately.
Okay.
And switching over from reading, although I might jump back to reading. But anyway, I'm excited about a game called Dead Cells because it recently came out on the Nintendo Switch. And I think on all its platforms, it released its official 1.0. It was sort of in pre-release for I don't know, at least a year, if not longer. And so I'd heard lots of folks talk about this game and be very excited. And sometimes when you hear folks talk about a game, you get a sense for like, well, this one sounds interesting. Maybe it is my cup of tea, because the gist of this, it's a roguelite or roguelike that means that it's sort of it has elements that repeat, but the levels, the layout are random. The positions of enemies and secret things, it's different every single time you play it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, there's a build up to particular conflicts and sequencing and stuff in between levels that is consistent, but yet, but even that changes because what persists. Let's see. So this isn't a game that you're meant to go through successfully all in one go, and there's save points, and you start over and keep going in this one linear thing. You are meant to fail and try again. But what changes and persists is you retain like a bit of gold, and also the kinds of things that you can unlock as you go. It's got some fun, just like really nice animation and great aesthetics for this like a sort of a 16 maybe 32-bit era pixel art, like PlayStation 1, what have you, but
Yeah.
somewhere between Super NES and PlayStation 1. And it's a lot like a Metroid game, like the 2D kind, where you certainly have you unlock stuff that all of a sudden you can traverse the world differently.
Mm.
And so, like, even though you're starting over and you're playing the first level for the umpteenth time, it's not laid out like you've ever seen it before. That's one thing. But then all of a sudden you can approach it differently than you had before, because now you've built up capabilities, and and then you're also looking for interesting weapon combinations. It's like all these little choices that add up to finding a personally satisfying way to explore the game. And that's neat academically and conceptually. Like, if someone podcasts about a game and describes their experience, I can go, yes, fascinating. And then maybe even part with my money. But then what I can say is that it is vying for my attention when I relax. Like, Breath of the Wild has dominated my relaxation time for over a year. I bought the game the day it was released, and I have played it like ever since. And that is an amazing, wonderful game. I still recommend. I've mentioned it on like the last 4 reading, watching, playings, which is, we do maybe one a quarter or so. And anyway, yeah, that says a lot right there. That Dead Cells is pretty interesting for me.
It looks really interesting. Yeah. I was playing the video for it while you were talking and describing it. And it looks really, really cool. And the fact that the levels change, they reset, or not reset, but like when you never visit the same room twice, as it were.
It's almost like, so the game designers created a recipe that the game randomly assembles the portions of a level.
Ah,
And
what a neat idea.
Yeah, it feels it's different every time.
Are you listening, Metroid people? Listen to that. I think that would make a really, really cool Metroid Prime 4.
Whoa.
I think that would make a really, really cool one. Nate Marcel's in the chat and says, I finally bought into the new Dungeons and Dragons and learned to fold paper cranes, origami. And that would be something I would imagine would be like a little bit of that, like calming, like purely physical thing to do. I've done a little bit of it in the past, but nothing like where I made an animal.
Oh,
really cool.
Like a crane. That is a lot of fun. Every once in a while, I'll do a YouTube search to find instructions for making a crane, because it's it's a pleasant little thing, little paper statue.
Tell me about, you saw Infinity War.
Oh yeah, I saw it again. So I have it. Bought
again?
it on streaming. Well, I saw it in the theater.
Okay.
As well. Well, I mean, it's one of those deals where I have bought into and enjoy, by and large, the overall cinematic universe that Marvel's put out the last decade, right? And this is it's a good movie. It's very it's tough on you as far as completing the story, because clearly there's a second half. Not
first 3 hours of a 6-hour movie.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed like the Lord of the Rings series. I'm a fan of serial entertainment like Dragon Ball Z and whatnot. And
that's true.
Yeah. I mean, so when I get hit with when someone cliffhangers me in the face, I'm like, okay. I'm not always, that enthusiastic about it, but okay, I can buy into it and tolerate the wait. But
the part that grabbed me, the part that I found to be very memorable and enjoyable, and this won't spoil anything, is that the cameo by Peter Parker's best friend. school bus. And what he does is like it's 2 seconds. It's 2 seconds of the movie, but it's just so I'm so glad they included it.
It's very early. It's very satisfying, and it's such a natural that character.
Yeah. It literally sums up the entire character in his relationship with Peter in 2 seconds of footage. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. There's I don't know what else I can share without spoiling it. I'm not like
I know the
like
whole thing is
I'm like a creative process podcaster, not necessarily a media I can't spoil podcaster. Some people are really good at that, and they think about lots of different elements. I thought, I memean, since it was my third watching, I noticed a few different things. I saw it twice in the theater, and and so this time it's like when you see something that's such a density of storytelling, well, I mean, much like listening to some kind of music when it comes by you, the first time. Like for me, I don't necessarily have the skill to unbox and parse a thing real time and notice the techniques of how the story is being told to me. And I was able to notice a few things this time, as far as like there's a lot of trading back and forth of characters on camera, and I thought, oh, I bet that limits the complexity of managing these different CGI characters and conversation and stuff. Nothing, nothing bad, but I was like, oh, interesting. There are so many back and forth moments where it's a single character in the frame. I was like,
yeah. Huh. And I'm sure, yes, and that movie has a lot to do. I mean, it means it has a lot of jobs to fulfill as this thing that all these different stories have been pointing to.
So many plot points, so many arcs, and like almost like mini arcs of characters that that's a complicated story that I thought was pretty well told. As in, it's simple in, it's like, there's a bad guy, let's beat the bad guy, that kind of thing. But it's the who's participating and how and why, and then having them do this in a voice that is that's their own. There's an interesting extra included with the version that I bought, that was many of the directors of the Marvel movies just having a conversation. It's a lot of high-fiving, right? It's like, yeah, we're good, you're awesome, oh, I like you too, that's so neat when we met each other. But then there's also
it's so neat when we met each other.
but then they do point out specific evolutions and points in time as far as this overall body of work, and which is interesting. I mean, it's like nothing I've ever experienced. Like something like some teen movies that somehow relate to one another, and with a bunch of different actors and storytellers and writers. Pretty interesting. I mean, us, during the time when I grew up, if something like explored a property that I had affection for or felt related to, it came with it's probably going to suck in a variety of ways, but I'm just going to love it because I love this character, right? And that's changed. I mean, this is these are movies meant to maybe too great of an extent to have like a serious credibility, and they can get overly serious in a way and lose a sense of fun. But then something like the Black Panther and Thor Ragnarok, those are super fun and joyful.
Yeah, but also with stakes, right?
Exactly. Still meaningful.
Yeah. Agreed. Like, and in Ragnarok, the stakes are the relationship between Thor and Loki, and watching these two brothers like work out their problems, right?
Yeah.
but yet you can also have, literally the end of the world happening and then have a really cute moment with the Hulk that feels very charming, right? So, and yeah, that shared universe was that?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, just the shared universe thing. I just like as a kid, I remember thinking like that's just something that just doesn't happen, right? Like I remember in the Sunbow cartoons I grew up on, in like Transformers, GI Joe, and Humanoids, and so on. There was a recurring character named Hector Ramirez, who was like a news reporter who was like there signed up to Geraldo Rivera, and he showed up in Gem too. That's right. And so like
No.
yeah, and it was the writer's like little wink at the audience, like, oh yeah, we're using this character a lot. But as a kid, I remember thinking like, are these all connected in the same universe? Could I see an episode where like GI Joe and Transformers and Gem all interact? Never happened. And as a result, I just like grew accustomed to that notion, like, well, that just doesn't happen. It's too complicated, and now I understand more about like intellectual property rights and so on. But now it's like that's becoming the norm, right? Like Hasbro's working on a shared universe thing for all those characters to interact. They've been doing comics about it, and there's talk about them doing some kind of movies, which I'm dubious about, but we'll see. Bumblebee looks interesting. Anyway, let's see what else we got on my list. Well, my perennial one to go back to for at least another couple years is Voltron, Legendary Defender. I just finished season 6.
Yeah.
So emotionally taxing, but it's in just the right ways. And I it's one of those things where I can't spoil anything, but they know just how to get you. They do this wonderful trick where like mid-season, they do one episode that has nothing to do with the plot, and it's just celebrating why we love the characters. We get to watch them do a fun thing. In one season, they go to a space mall, and it's like this little romp in a space mall, and it's silly and it's irreverent and it's wonderful, and all the characters get to do a thing that feels really intrinsic to the characters. In season 6, they play Dungeons and Dragons. Like there's actually them playing like a space version of Dungeons and Dragons together. And it's just so freaking charming. And like it's gotten to the point where I know that when they give me one of those episodes, I'm like, one of those episodes, I know that the really heavy stuff is coming. And sure enough, like the next episode was just like pound, 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 punching you in the heart over and over again. Are you dead yet? No? Oh, okay, here. I'm gonna pound you in the heart again. 2 more seasons. And yeah, season 7 just dropped. And I know everybody else has already watched all of them because everybody binges, but I've been savoring them, watching one episode a week.
So you know that it ends after 8 seasons?
Yeah, they announced.
I didn't know that.
Will be the last one.
Oh gosh! Yeah. So now it's serial with writers, punishing you smartly, and it must be increasing in stakes with an ultimate end, and that's ooh. Yeah. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple times where I've fallen head over heels for a series, and then like before the last season comes out, they announce that okay, the next one's the last one. And when that happens, it's bittersweet, but I'd rather have that bittersweetness than have the shock of, oh, that's it? That's the end? Avatar: The Last Airbender was one that was like that, where it's like, okay, I know I'm coming up on the last episode, and yeah, it felt sad, but also immensely satisfying. Beast Wars was another one. Speaking of Transformers in a shared universe, Nate Marcel's in the chat recommending Tom Scioli's, is that how you say it? Scioli? Is brilliant. He's brilliantly bringing G.I. Joe and Transformers together in the comics. Yeah, I have seen those. I haven't read them yet, and they've got a lot of really good reviews. So, I will have to check that out. All right. Do you got one more reading, watching, playing before we get over to the second half of the show, Rob?
Oh yes. I wanted to do like just a brief mention of just endorsing the idea of getting out an RSS reader. I know that most folks did this at one point in time. Even if you're on the younger side of our listeners, there's a chance. I mean, well, maybe you would have followed a group of things in Tumblr or whatnot. But then that's a little bit like the RSS feed, because you have the unfettered, unmessed with timeline. that's a good thing to go back to at least be able to tune into somewhere, I think. And maybe there isn't like an easy, well, like honestly, like what was it, Google Reader, right? That was
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember
it
Google
was the
Reader. Yeah.
juggernaut. It was free, very powerful, and kind of created a critical, like everyone went there, right? And then of course that creates a weakness. Then everyone's going there. So if it goes away, then now what? And that's where you get into things like Twitter and Facebook, fulfilling the need. And we've talked on the show of like, oh gosh, I don't use RSS much anymore. And I know, but I'm not saying make it your main thing, but I felt um, not just nostalgic enjoyment of saying like, haha, I'm subscribing to XML in an app, and look at it go. Oh, it's fetching stuff from websites that I'm not visiting, but I'm seeing it. No, it's just neat. Like you are making your own pretty easy to assemble little news portal. So I've got a few. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit of Mac news, tiny bit of tech, and but then some design and whatnot, and it's fun. Um,
So yeah, we
Twitter,
talked about this before, and we talked about Feedly, didn't we? Or no?
Feedly, yeah, I think we've mentioned Feedly, yeah.
Yeah. Which I downloaded afterwards. And you know what else I did? I went to my feed burner and I updated my custom feed to where it's like all of my stuff gets poured into it, and it's actually rss.jdros.com or feeds.feedburner.com/jersey both
Oh,
of the
that's
same thing.
awesome.
And so it actually like imports all of my stuff, like mostly my Instagram is what appears right now because that's where I've been posting most of my things. But like if I post things to YouTube, it becomes like this is my Blogspot feed essentially. But I use if this then that to pump all my stuff into that feed. So now I have like this canonical. If you want to know what's going on in my life, if you want to see what stuff I'm making, it's rss.jjaros.com.
Cool. That's a great idea. So that's the going to the other side, not just being a consumer of feeds, but then creating your own feed. Gosh, there was a tool for that too that's escaping me, um, where it was meant to be the aggregator of all your stuff, and it's one of those tools that went away, and I can't even remember its name. But
Yeah, I remember it was like a little mini site that would just aggregate your stuff, right? It became
mhm.
like a landing page where it was like, here's everything you need to know. I had one. I forget what it was called too. But yeah, I mean, as long as RSS is still around, you can use if this then that, which is ifttt.com to create
Mhm.
custom rules to like take your content from social media feeds and put them into a website. You could put it onto a WordPress, you could put it into a blog spot, a Tumblr, whatever, but you could have like a canonical sort of like this is my what do they call it? The fire hose.
Syndicate of your fire hose, or your syndicated, you know, um, collective feed. And yeah, but the one tool I've been using for consuming is it's a News Explorer. It's it's solid. There's a Mac OS client and an iOS client, and they both sort of sync up as far as like what I've read or not read and favorited. So yeah, um,
News Explorer. Is this it? What I
yep,
have pulled up
that is
here?
it.
Okay, by Ron Ellemans, 9.99 in the Mac App Store.
Hmm.
And so here's what I just want to pull up one of the screenshots if I can, so we can see. Oh, that's not going to let me do it. There. So all your feeds are in the left column, and then it turns into a picture preview.
It's
And then as
very
you tap,
inbox looking, right?
yeah.
So the combination of like these are your feeds, which in a way are like the sections of your email or whatever. Then you've got the preview of each individual message, and then the full view of
So I'll tell you
yeah.
why this is actually interesting to me personally is I have been on the business end of the algorithm in that I'll go down a rabbit hole one day on
Yeah.
YouTube, and I'll just like for instance, I out of curiosity clicked this video about the history of like one of the Nintendo consoles. I was like, and I just like, I want some background stuff going on. That sounds kind of interesting. And I was like, okay, that was pretty interesting. Let me hear another one from this guy. Let me hear another one from this guy. And then next thing I know, that the next day my YouTube landing or homepage is like, here's a whole bunch of gaming history stuff. We know you like that right now. I'm like, well, but I'm not into that anymore, right? I satisfied. I scratched that itch, you know. And then same thing with my Google News feed. Like, so I was using that app on my phone, and it's like, oh, you read like 3 stories about the president, so now here's like a whole bunch of information about the president. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, but I have other interests beyond this, and right, so it's like it's paying attention to what I'm reading to like keep serving me what I want, but you know what, my interests change from day to day, and the algorithm can't necessarily know that about me, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of subtlety. As much modeling and stuff that happens with you know, noticing what you notice, or trying to attempt and model everything that you notice. They don't always know why, and well, there's a lot of room for error. And then here you go. There's less room for error in something that you control, and there's still a lot of great sources to just consume via RSS.
Boy, wouldn't it be neat if there was like an RSS renaissance? Like if like 19-year-old kids were like coming to me, they do this every once in a while. They'll come to me with like some like brilliant artist that they just like discovered. Did you know about like, no, I don't know, like George Perez? Did you know about him? I'll be like, oh, tell me, what do you like about it? Right? I would love to have like a 19-year-old kid come to me and be like, did you know about RSS? Let me tell you about it. Like, tell me more. I want to hear it.
Yeah,
that'd be neat.
Yes, let's. I would happily either, you know, help cause that, or just passively enjoy that it came about. So bring back the RSS, and then maybe find a way to turn your quote, "I've been on the business end of the algorithm," into a T-shirt.
Oh, did I say that? Oh, that's okay. That's not bad. All right, I think it's time to take a break and then come back for the second half of the show. What do you say, Rob?
Yeah, perfect timing.
All right, so in about 1 minute and 30 seconds, we're going to come back and talk about finding time to draw and various art tools that we've been, you know, it has our personal drawing toolbox changed in any way since the last time we checked in on this. But before we do that, we got to thank some people who make this show possible. And those people happen to be the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes, patreon.com. Oh, let me hit the theme. There we go. /Lean Into Art is the site where you will find it. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. A way for you to say, hey, I believe in Jerzy and Rob. I believe in what they make. I want to help make it more sustainable, contributing as little as $1 a month. We want to thank 5 people who've been doing exactly that. First up, Rachel Ross. Thank you, Rachel, for believing in us. You can find Rachel on Twitter at NYC Terrace, Teres. And then India, brilliant cartoonist. You can follow India on Twitter at Old Swifty. And Becca Hilburn. Thank you, Becca. You can find Becca on Twitter at Natto Soup. And Catherine Sugru at Cat Sugru with a K, KATSOOGROO. And finally, Ashley Knapp, longtime friend of the show. You can find Ashley on Twitter at ControlAltLee. And you can join them by going to patreon.com/leanintoart, where you will find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows that we record only for leaners. You see it right there. It's on the screen. It says, unlock it now. Extra lean 123, Gentle Bros. And we want to thank everybody who has been supporting us there. Did that pique your interest, anybody? You want to find out what Gentle Bros is about? Well, you can go to patreon.com/leanintoart, contribute as little as $1 a month. You can listen to the episode right now. And we thank everybody who has been doing that, supporting us at patreon.com/leanintoart. Once again, that's patreon.com/leanintoart. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. It really means a lot. That upvote, it gives us energy to, you know, keep at it.
All right.
So
I got to do some transition music. You know, I'm going to do something unheard of that never before in 243 episodes we have never done this. I'm going to play the same transition music twice.
Still works.
It still works. Even a half hour in, 40 minutes in, he's still going. So related. I was teaching a class today, and my 9-year-old student, he's doing a comic where Sonic is eating breakfast, and he gets like really really amped up from eating breakfast, and and then so in panel 3 he's all yellow and his hair's like all pointed up, and I'm like, well, what's going on in this panel here? It's like, oh, he's Super Saiyan because it was an awesome breakfast. And I was just like, that's like, now it's just an expression. Like if I'm feeling awesome, I'm Super Saiyan, right? Sonic the Hedgehog going Super Saiyan after eating breakfast. Okay. So yeah, of course I thought of you, Rob. I was like, yeah, that. I think that would communicate well with him.
I absolutely on the same wavelength. And honestly, the only question was, as you were saying that, I'm like, which breakfast does that for me?
So actually, the kid's comic was quite brilliant. I got a little too excited about it. So it starts with Sonic catching Eggman and cracking him open, and he's a double yolk egg, and so that's why he gets Super Saiyan. And then a wolf comes in to try to eat Sonic. Sonic shrinks the wolf into a frying pan to cook him for breakfast too, but then it backs away, and Sonic is being made for breakfast by a giant Eggman. So it kind of like goes into a circle. It was a weird, surreal, like fever dream Sonic comic. I liked it a lot.
It's like nested breakfast hubris.
Nested breakfast hubris. Oh, I'm going to tell him that's his title. Look, I consulted with some people. This is your title. All right. What about finding time to draw? Have you been finding time to draw, Rob?
Not as much as I would like. I've been doodling in meetings from time to time, and almost like a miniature version of visual note taking. It's something I'm a fan of. But I was at a meeting that in one particular example where I've got my little it's sitting over there, my little Oxford index card wallet, and lately I've been, let's see, which pen I've been carrying with me, a Micron, like a Micron 05. And anyway, I was drawing this story. There was a speaker, and just I ended up finding like an extra insight, because I was just capturing a couple of word observations, and then just did some symbols of this person was describing their transition from this initial like extra challenging start in their career to then like to a soft landing, right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So like going to a gig that was so related but lower stakes than your current gig, how interesting. Anyway, so like that was neat. And like drawing with the intent to capture and discover at the same time is a fun practice. But
so what I'm hearing in that too is that you're like letting what's happening around you serve as prompts.
Yeah, true.
For doodling in your journal or your sketchbook or note cards. Yeah, I think like sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I don't get as much time to draw as I would like, I feel like a little bit more pressure on it when I do get that time. Like, oh, I better draw something good. I better use this opportunity to get like my maximum inspiration on the paper, and I better make sure that this is something awesome. And I'll forget to do it in pure exploration mode of like, I wonder what's going to happen when I start throwing some lines down on this paper, right? And I think like that kind of prompt idea, like, so I've been like trying to, both Ann and I have been trying to like take our sketchbooks with us to the park whenever we get a chance to actually go for a walk in the park and sit down and draw without agenda, right? So like we'll draw like the trees, like, so we went for a walk recently and I was like, all right, I'm going to draw some trees that I see and whatever. But other times I'd be like, you know what? No, I'm just going to like let whatever occurs to me as I look around happen on the page and just start throwing some lines down and see what happens, right? So like I was looking at some rocks, at the park, and then this like started to come out of it. Just as I felt like I was exploring with the pencil, right?
Yeah.
And then once I penciled it, I was like, all right, let's throw some ink on it. Once I threw the ink on it, I was like, let's see what happens if I color it, But yeah, like to remind myself to take time to draw without an agenda. and not treat it like it's this Marshall check-in, right? Um, yeah, you're
Marshall
shaking your head with
check-in shows up all the time.
Marshall check-in.
Like, why are you telling me to, work harder when I just want to relax or
Yeah,
whatever? Yeah, and or relax harder when it's already a little bit of some kind of transition and an adjustment where it's like, especially you're using the tools that, like, it's not like the tools are an instant vacation from what you normally do, right? You're using the same tools in a different context, and that
Oh,
kind of,
yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it. That's a great reframing it because yes, most of the time I am drawing during the day anyway, right? And so one could easily say like, "Well, I'm all burnt out on drawing. I don't want to." Well, yes, that does happen. You get tired, but at the same time, it's like when I'm drawing other people's stuff, um, where does that pure like uh, unfiltered creativity of my own happen, right? A lot of making comics is solving visual problems. How do I communicate this idea effectively, which can
mm,
be a lot more work than play sometimes. Not to complain, it's a marvelous way to make money. I love it when I get paid to do that, and like the intellectual challenge of that is intensely rewarding, almost almost like I don't want to say like a drug, but it's very very it's a kind of reward that I enjoy getting over and over and over again. If I was a rat, I'd be pushing that plunger over and over again, like more of that, please. But it's not the same as when I allow myself to be playful, right? It's a different
mm,
thing altogether. And also, and I talked about this years ago, is like letting myself learn new tools by playing, right? I taught myself to ink with a brush by saying, okay, I'm going to do an ink drawing a day, but I'm going to make sure that the drawing that I do is something I'm really good at drawing, or at least I feel really comfortable drawing. So that's not the challenge. The challenge isn't representation. The challenge is how do I make this brush do what I want with the structures that I can easily construct. Does that make sense? Um,
it does. It's this. It feels like, I know I find it hard to navigate sometimes the different modes of the intentionally playing with a sense of openness and curiosity versus intentionally practicing in a low pressure situation versus intention in practicing with a little more pressure and more constraints in order to improve.
mhm.
And I blur those uh,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
a pretty regular basis.
And as do I. I mean, like, because like what I've been doing is playfully trying to practice my watercoloring in
Mm.
my sketchbook by doing drawings that, again, like this is like almost stock Jerzy draws. I could go back to like probably 20 comics where this panel has occurred. Um,
Go to jerseystock.com.
it's yes,
So
it's
many.
very it's the two characters running
Mm,
comically while one's angry and one's like, oh, like what, like that is
mhm,
something that I lean on a lot. So it's like that's not inventive, but what I'm trying to do here is I'm like, okay, let's see if I can make these watercolors work with what I normally do well, and not make the challenge the whole thing. Make it just the challenge is using the watercolors.
mm.
Um, and then, but I'm also doing product development because I'm also playing around with this character Baron von Bear, who I want to make a mini comic about later on. So it's serving multiple purposes. And yeah, here's another unfinished one that I never even posted because I didn't get to finish it. But this was when I got to class a little bit early, and I was waiting for kids to show up. And so I was like, well, if I've got a few minutes, open up the sketchbook. And there's like sometimes there's a little bit of a reluctance of like, oh, geez, do you ever check out Jersey? I'm like, well, remember, you're playing. You are playing. You're not working. So let's just play a little bit while we wait for the kids to show up.
Something I've been doing that is not a like, I know you're describing playfully drawing, but I've been recording my thoughts on the way to work,
Mm.
and which I go through that same um that's a really similar debate. This is why I bring it up, where you're saying like, don't you want to, take time to do something else or whatever, and 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 there's a little bit of a tension, a tense thing to navigate where, well, just listen to a podcast, relax, breathe, just listen to traffic, whatever, right? You don't have to make stuff all the time. And then I thought, um, I benefit, but by being in a stream of activity that's at least close to what I want to do frequently and what I want to improve at. And I actually, if I really ask myself, is this going to hurt or like cause me undue stress or whatever? Not really. I mean, there's that little moment of like, hey, what are you doing here? But then it's after that, I'm like, no, let's just see what happens. And it's been neat. Like I did that like, let's see, I don't know, for like my last 4 or 5 work days in a row.
Are you reviewing these afterwards, or are you just letting it be like the repository?
Lightly. So it's really imprecise. I want to improve the process, but what the process is so far, I'm using an app called Just Press Record on iOS, and there's a desktop client on the Mac, and it does a job of transcribing it. So it has transcription built in, and that's not meant to be, oh, no, I'm just blogging by prattling into my phone, because it is essentially one giant sentence what it pulls out of it. And so to make something parsable from it, I have a little script that I turn, I format the text into, more scannable lines and paragraphs, and which is imprecise. It breaks words in the middle and stuff like that, but it's still one giant block of text into, here is 10 lines and a break, and then 10 more lines and a break. It's pretty visibly scannable and at least somewhat findable when I search my hard drive. So if I'm trying to think like, what are my thoughts on that? When I've used it to generate ideas for Lean Into Artcast. And it's like a way to get some useful practice out of that time, and without the expectation of extreme in high quality output or consistent performance, but yet it's like keeping in touch and practicing and seeing what comes out of it, because a lot of times I have no idea what the heck I'm going to talk about.
Interesting. That is, I wonder if there's like an Android. Well, I have an old iPhone. I can see if I can install it on there. Just press
But the trick
record.
is not necessarily the benefit from that's an experiment. The whole auto transcribes. It's okay. And it makes it a little more findable. But actually getting use out of the notes, it's pretty good to at least know which file you want to listen to, and then listen to it on a high speed. And then you just take a couple notes as it flies by. So that's not like the high pressure value thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no, this goes back to so Mushin Girl was in the chat and was responding to what I was talking about earlier about sketchbooks and about like treating it like, this is Marshall time. Same. I am my own worst enemy when I have time to draw. So much pressure on myself. All right, like this is, I think, the takeaway is that we're both reflecting on this notion of we catch ourselves showing up and expecting an intensity that, right, because it's time to make things, time to lean, time to clean. You remember that?
I do.
I'm sure there's people who still use it.
When I cook in the kitchen, I'm just like, as soon as I like sit back or look around, I'm like, uh-oh, it's time to lean, time to clean. And I see what I can do with it.
But there's also showing up in a spirit of like, either playfulness or non-expectation. Right? To expect nothing from something is really hard. We're not used to that. It's not something that I think we get a lot of practice at.
No, well, even this, like, finding a way to just engage with it playfully, um, making yourself giggle, just even smirk, because there's something about it that is just, I don't know, mischievous or curiosity invoking, and just playful in some way, where like you and this thing are in some kind of game with one another. Um, that's yeah, that I I encountered that a lot at IO thematically, when folks in folks talks, that I don't know if it was a purposefully curated element of um, making sure that this was a recurring theme, but or it's just my bias, but I felt I found a recurring theme of just, yeah, if you can just find a way to engage in the thing that you do playfully, that it's likely going to be of great benefit. Um,
That Industrial Revolution really did a number on us, didn't it?
yeah, I know it's well, and I guess if you're a severe but calm enough person, so you don't stress out and fall over, um, that can be useful, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, these different traits aren't here for no reason.
Mhm.
They've helped us survive, but then they're not always particularly fitting or welcome either. So it's nice to try to find other strategies. Um, I mean, if you're working against or working with some aspect of your nature, because it's you've got a case of the Dragon Ball Z intensity going on. Um, Honestly, that can be pretty darn useful. But then some strategies don't. Um, the repetition of one effective strategy for me, I it's not a burnout necessarily, but it doesn't feel as rewarding after a certain time.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, oh yeah, new strategy sounds appealing. Anyway, um, so I want to understand a little bit more about, but like, what are you thinking as far as not working and playing? Uh,
Um, no, I think I got all my exploration there. The only other thing that I had on my list, that as far as this part of the discussion goes, is that um I took you to Lucky's Market when you were in town during
mm,
E2CAF, right? And Lucky's Market is like this sort of in between Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. It's like this mid ground between those two places. Um, and for those who haven't seen either, it's what would you call it? Organic food slash like sort of healthy eating grocery store, right?
mm,
Um, but what Lucky's has also is like Whole Foods, they have like a food bar and they have a bar. Like you can actually go get a pint of beer and walk around the store and drink a pint of beer. And because it's so convenient for me to get to it, often it's like the place that Anna and I will stop on the way home and be like, oh, let's grab a quick pint. It's like $2, and then we can like sort of unwind from our day, like just chill out for a few minutes, and then we'll just go home. And also, if we happen to remember, oh my gosh, we forgot to get butter, there it is, right? Um, and so we both have sort of taken to using that also as an opportunity to like, while we're sitting here having a beer and unwinding, we can also chat and drink beer while we draw. And so the sketchbooks open up and we just sit and draw together for a little while. And again, it's without agenda. So it's like, it's just, we're both trying to be very mindful of when there are opportunities to introduce that into a situation without it being disruptive or without it being something where we have to summon strength to do it. Right? Like that's the warning sign for me. Do I have to do a breath? Do I have to go, here we go, right? Um,
well, okay, so there's the mental strength, but there's also the availability. That's one thing I'm hearing is that's nice to make note of. It's not that well, oh sure, you can engage in this playfully, but you have to go travel across town to that specific thing. You've got it with you.
yeah.
That's interesting too.
Well, we covered this in the Everyday Carry episode,
Yeah.
and so we can link to that in the show notes. Perhaps like we did an
Mhm.
episode where we talked about like what we carry on our person all the time, and like one of the rules I instituted like 5 years ago is that this sketchbook. I always have a sketchbook on me, and I have like 3 different bags that I use to get around town, and each one of them has a different sketchbook in, so I don't have to think about, do I have my sketchbook with me? If I have one of those bags, there is a sketchbook on me. So it's ever present, and it's always available, even if there's no chance I'm going to use it, right? Because there is a chance I'm going to use it, even when I'm in the grocery store. I actually ran into my watercolor instructor, and I told her, I was like, I want to thank you for the class because you helped me conquer my fear of doing watercolor. And I was just at the grocery store the other day doing some watercolor sketches. She's like, the grocery store, huh? I was like, yeah. Lucky's. And she's like, oh, that's right. They have that area where you can sit and work. Anyway, so yes, availability is part of it too, is like introducing availability so that when the opportunities show up, you can, well, this goes back to something Kazu Kibuishi said, is like preparing for opportunities rather than looking for opportunities.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that statement a lot. It's good. It's a really helpful thought. Because in one framing, you're trying to force it a little more than just sort of seeing what arises. And
his reframing also reminds you to trust yourself, that you, in your endeavors, you are making preparations, right? And trust that the opportunities will present themselves if you're engaging with this thing, right? Not to say that your hands are totally off the wheel, right? There's effort that's involved, but anyway, yes. I talk about tools a little bit.
Yeah. What's working for you with this practice?
What's working for me? Well, one, I mean, so I think I said at the top, a reason I bring this topic up is that we are at least in North America, up the Northern Hemisphere, back to school season is starting in a lot of places, and a lot of stores do back to school sales. And like I said, I like to take that opportunity. Like, I get very excited about back to school season because I get to go to like Target or any big box store and look at all their back to school setup and see, like, are there any cool, fun things to draw with? Now, I've been on a quest for almost 10 years. Years ago, Anne had a box of Crayola crayons that were scented. Have you ever had scented Crayola crayons, Rob?
No, really?
Yes, it's like
I didn't know they did that.
They did years ago, and just like Dr. Sketchy's markers, like how the black marker smells like black licorice, the purple marker smells like grape. It was a box of crayons, and like the black marker smelled like leather jacket, or the black crayon rather smelled like leather jacket. The brown one smelled like sandy beach, and they were like fairly reasonable scents. We lost the box of crayons years ago. As some people who follow the show might know, I really enjoy drawing with crayons too. I like to keep a box of crayons on me for when I'm doing like art drops and things. And I've wanted to find those every year for the last 10 years. I go to the back to school sales. Do they have scented crayons? No? Damn. And I walk out. This year, I found scented crayons. And now this is a very Lisa Frank looking box. It's called Centos scented crayons, 24 crayons in the box. It was like $2. Let's see what scents we got in here. I already started drawing with them. This is called Sam Jam. Red. It smells like berries. And then we've got Sour Seymour, which is a bit orange. Oh. Interesting. It smells a little bit spicy.
Oh my gosh. You have a new YouTube video series based on crayon smelling. This is
Freddy Fresh. It smells kind of like I want to say like blue soda pop. You know what blue soda pop smells? And let's see, Macintosh.
What's this?
Oh, I think it's supposed to smell like apples.
Is it like a sweet fake apple kind of thing?
No, it's more musky.
Oh,
interesting. Maybe they made it smell like an Apple store. Anyway, Centos, and this is where I got really excited. Because, as we know, I use colored pens with my ETP, and I got from Jet Pens ages ago this multicolored pen, and you can like build your own multi-pen with your own custom colors in it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is how I categorize things in my ETP. Like, okay, well, this is like freelance illustration that's going to be marked in green, personal projects marked in purple, and so on. But next to the scented crayons, they had a Centos multi-pen with 10 colors on it.
Unbelievable.
and they're all scented. So, like, I don't know what all the scents are supposed to be, but there's purple, there's yellow, there's brown, there's green, there's blue, there's red, and they all have like a corresponding scent with them. It's a little thing, but I really, really enjoy it.
That is impressive. What a world.
What a world.
Okay, so that's 10 scented colors, and it's a multi-selectable. It's a crayon, or it's colored pencil.
Colored pen.
Colored pen.
So it's like a multi-pen.
Oh, wow. That's
Each
cool.
ink color is scented. So when I'm marking up my ETP with the week's activities, let's see, this doesn't give away anything too personal, right? So like I do it all in different colors, right? But now these colors smell.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know. There's something that just feels like. You remember, opening a lunchbox and like having a thermos and like just that there's something that was both tactile and what was it like? What's the word for smell? Smell. It was I want to say olfactory. Yeah. Something about like both. So like something about that, like scratch and sniff stickers and things like that. Like just like it puts me in this kind of childlike mindset when I'm playing with these kinds of tools. So
yeah, you've added another sense to the experience.
Yeah.
That's there's a what's that?
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention the multicolored pen I've been using that I bought from Jet Pens, and I do not have the discipline yet, that I haven't developed the habit as far as my weekly planning stuff that I do that's similar but a bit different. I made my own template as far as my week review and day-to-day stuff, but like this is what's it called? It's a multi-5 ballpoint, a uni multi-5 ballpoint, except it's also a pencil. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, and then the fifth one is an actual mechanical pencil.
I was looking at that one. What do you think of it so far?
It's pretty new to me, right? So I'm accustomed to a thicker, just single purpose mechanical pencil. I kind of like my mechanical pencils to be a bit like a wider grip, right? And so it has that, except it's this bonus of like some free options with some ink colors: black, blue, green, and red.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I like it. Where this tool is invited along, I carry it with me, and it's like I'm figuring out uses for it.
Yeah. Well, because if you're going to be doing any kind of, do we really have to justify it? But I can imagine uses where it's like, oh, I'm going to like diagram something real quick. I'm going to mock up something real quick. Having multiple pen colors on your person. I've done things when I'm like tabling at shows where I give little mini workshops at the table. Like a kid will come up and the parents say like, oh, our son really wants to make comics someday. Can you give him some tips? And I'm like, okay, well, let's do shape, size, line, and color together. And like having different colored pens to sort of mark up a drawing to point out like, okay, this color is going to be, pink is going to be for shape, green is going to be for size, purple is going to be for line, and blue is going to be for color, right? Like to mark up all the different parts of a drawing that I did to show them how those pieces interact, right? That's like one instance where having a multi-pen has been very useful.
That's great.
But also, it's like I said, I respond to visuals much better than other forms of information, visual representations of information better than most other forms. So marking up my week in color-coded areas is very, very, it matches the way I think. So that's another reason I do that. I'm not going to say it's a solution for everybody. While we're on the topic of tools, Nate Marcel, speaking of pens, is saying that discovered Stadler ballpoint pens. Nate, if you could give us a reason why, I would love to mention it on the show. Speaking of uni, I discovered, so I've been using Pentel blue leads for, I want to say 11 or 12 years. I've been using Pentel blue leads. meaning the little mechanical refills that you put in mechanical pencils. I've been using the Pentel Twist Erase pencil for over 20 years. It's my favorite pencil in the whole world. They don't make it anymore, but at least they can refill them with, refillable leads. But a student of mine, actually a teen student, accidentally bought these leads and didn't like them and asked if they could trade with me. And I was like, sure, I'll try out some new blue leads. And it's called Uni .5 Blue Nano Dia Color. And it's a little bit of a darker blue than I'm used to using, but it erases so freaking well. It's insane how well it
brittle
erases.
are the leads? How are
I
they?
would say they're very similar to Pentel.
Okay.
If you've used Pentel leads, they're very similar to that. So
Very
let's see if I can.
okay.
I haven't noticed very much of a difference with regard to like its brittleness or its tactile feel on the page. Feels the same, but it's. I'll hold this up. So there's the blue, right? So it's a pretty darker. It's a darker blue than what you get with a Pentel. But now I'm going to erase. Man, I'm totally doing an infomercial here. But this is what blew me away: is how well it erases off of the paper. It just vanishes, right? Even when I draw really hard.
That's nuts. Holy moly.
It's
because you may as well just be talking to the blue ink, to the blue lead from the Pentel stuff. You're like, please don't be on the page, and it's like, nope, I'm staying. Like, okay, because you can smudge it a little bit. It's incredibly stubborn. And
it can be.
I break those leads as if the page were Pac-Man eating dots, where I'm like, draw,
yeah,
click.
Oh yeah,
draw.
This uni stuff is about the same. Right?
Okay,
So you got to work with a light touch, but because it's darker, a light touch goes a long way. Quiet Creed is in the chat, says, "Hey, is it just me or does blue lead not erase as well? Maybe I'm just using a not so good brand." And it's funny you should say that, yeah, because like this uni brand, I got I asked my students once I started using it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Where did you get it? He's like, JetPens, and I looked it up, and yes, you can find it on jetpens.com. I can hold up the camera one more time. We can link to it in the show notes.
Yeah. Uni.
Yeah, it was. I've because I've been using the Pentel blue lead for so long, and then before that the non-photo blue. Who makes those ones? Was it Prismacolor? I can't remember. One of the two. Which has an even waxier feel. I just got accustomed to the blue just sticking around afterwards. And I mean, the part of the point is you use blue so you don't have to erase necessarily because you can easily remove it with. But at the same time, when you overwork a drawing, sometimes you want to be like, okay, I got some good structure there. Maybe if I just like lightly erase this and like try to work over it again. And this is awesome for that. So yeah, I found a new favorite blue mechanical lead.
So quick question from the chat from Mooshin Girl. Mooshin Girl asks, is the darker blue lead still non-photo when you scan?
Well, it shows up when you scan, if you scan in full color, but like if you go into what I do is I go into Photoshop and then you just like go to the blue channel if you scan it in RGB, and I get rid of the blue channel, it removes like 99.9% of the blue. I forget if there's a way to do that in Clip Studio Paint because I've been relying on Photoshop to do that so much. I'd have to look on that. But if you scan in, I've done some grayscale scans of my thumbnails where I will do the initial figures with this blue lead, and then I go in with graphite, and even when I scan it in grayscale, the blue will show up, but it's easily removable just by doing a level adjustment. So, but then again, that's just my thumbnails. I'm not trying to get this thing print ready. So, so Mooshin Girl scans in Photoshop. So yes, if you go to the blue channel and just like turn that off and then convert the image to grayscale, it'll get rid of the blue for you.
That's really cool. I'm excited. I have to try those.
Yeah.
I'm not like I'm not like an anti I'm not anti the Pentel blue LEDs. In fact I use both the blue and the red typically when I'm doing a lot of natural media work. But then to have the opportunity to erase, I mean, that's just tempting. Just feel it's like a free bonus option, and that doesn't come easy in natural media.
No.
Because it's all about that, you're committing.
I feel like we should get to final thought pretty soon here.
Okay,
Can I take a break and then we can do final thought with any last tools that we want to mention?
sounds good. One more DBZ dance, I suppose, huh? All right. I'm joking. Please don't.
No, we gotta thank. We gotta take a minute to thank. We're gonna wrap up the show with like some final things. But before we do that, we'll take a minute and 30 seconds or so to thank some other people who make this show possible. Those people happen to be us. We make stuff, and we take the thinking that we do around the stuff that we make and bring it to make this show. And the thing that I hope you will check out that I make is Science Comics Rockets. You can find out more about it at sciencecomicsrockets.com. It is a comics documentary about the history and science of rockets, as told by the animals who participated in rocket history. So yes, rats flew in rockets in the 1800s, for crying out loud. Turtles flew in rockets to orbit the moon before any Americans got there. They're Russian tortoises. Tortoises, not turtles. And it's in bookstores now, 114 odd pages. And it is a comics documentary that is aimed at middle school kids, but we wrote it with adults in mind as well, because we wanted it to be a very entertaining book that will help make people as excited about space flight as my wife Ann and I are. ScienceComicsRockets.com. Oh, also, we have tour dates on our website, and the next stop is tomorrow. I'm going to be at Terrificon in Connecticut. So if you're in the area, stop by. We'll draw some animals and your copies of Rockets. Rob, you make a game. I'm going to play the video while you talk about it.
Okay, awesome. I make a game called This Panda Needs You, and it's a very mellow puzzle game that has to do with pattern matching and stacking blocks, a little bit of physics, and the whole situation is you're this little panda going through a bamboo forest, some nice calm hills in the background, mellow music. Everything's fine, actually. The panda comes along, there's a nice stack of blocks, and well, it gets messed up when a cloud comes along, knocks everything over, and now it's up to you to help this little panda put things back to the way they should be. And the puzzles start out easy. They get progressively more challenging over 50 levels. There's little ways to jump ahead. If you're like, yeah, this is a little too easy, you can just like click on the little sun in the background and either skip ahead one or skip ahead a random amount forward and just sort of jump through the levels and play and explore. And you can learn more about it at this-panda.com, which is now updated with a little preview video and links to where you can buy it in your favorite app stores, such as Google Play, iTunes App Store, and itch.io, because it's available for your phones and your tablets and your desktop OSs.
Cool. And if you do purchase it, or if you have purchased it, a great thing you could do is leave a review for it wherever you purchased it. That helps more people discover it as well. And thank you to everybody who has done that. Same thing for Rockets. If you read Rockets and got a kick out of it, a great thing you could do is give it a review on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever you talk about books with people. But if you're here because you like the way we think about things instead of the stuff we make, or rather more than the stuff that we make, fair enough. This show is a product that we produce, and we have more products like it, self-contained videos at lenatork.com/workshops, where you can download them at a price of your choosing, even free. You download it for free. But if you do get value out of it, a cool thing you could do is go back and buy it again for a friend. That's like giving us a tip, and you're helping out a buddy. Friends help each other. If you're watching this video on YouTube, giving it a thumbs up right now helps more people find the show. And if you're listening to it after the fact in a podcatcher, like Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, or I'm trying to remember some other ones, Overcast, giving the show a 5-star review in any of those places helps more people find the show as well. We thank everybody who has been doing exactly that. It means a lot to us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. So, final thought. Any last?
Final thought. There's, I mean, honestly, I would have loved to have done a lot more drawing in recent weeks. I mean, as soon as, roughly halfway through July, it's just a combination. Earlier in the year, I was in the habit at least a few times a week to warm up and just sort of do some kind of creative visual thing wherever I was at daily. And that was nice. Then it died down. Then there was sketchbook summer, got into it again. Then that died down. And there's always like this other, the list of other stuff. And I don't know, like like how do you deal with that? Getting the more free, more availability, more consistency, and more play with this stuff.
My metric, or rather, I tried to come up with a cheap and easy way for me to notice when there was time for me to do it. Okay, and a key metric I looked up is if I have time to look at my phone, I have time to sketch, right? Um, rather than read what other people are up to. Now, I mean, I don't want to disparage the phone. I don't want to say that screens are evil, and I don't want to say that social media is necessarily evil or anything like that. Because like part of the joy of Instagram for me is seeing what my friends are up to, being able to check in on them when I don't have time to send them a text and get involved in a conversation, right? When you posted that picture recently on Instagram of your not man bun, not ponytail, and I noticed that there's a big metal thing on your finger. I'm like, Rob, what happened to your finger? Right?
I suppose once you commented, I thought, oh, that is a little distracting from the silly point I had. Yes.
So yes,
Checking in. Notice what your friends are up to.
That there's a value in that. So I don't want to diminish that, right?
Mm.
But there's also a lot of time where I'm just like reading the news and I catch myself reading the news to make myself anxious or to make myself angry or to make myself think hard on something. And while that can be valuable too, to be tuned into what's happening in the world, it doesn't have to be an ever-present thing. Or rather, maybe I can tap into that time to use it as a creative break. Let's have a creative break and let's be playful for a little while. That, like I said, that's my quick and dirty metric that I use. And like, when Ann and I would be having beer time at Lucky's, we noticed that we were both looking at our phones. I'm like, you know what? Let's break away from that just for a second. Let's use this opportunity to like just be here and draw, and we can chat while we do it, and or we can just relax and do it. You know, so that'd be one if I were to share a single idea.
That's pretty great. I mean, if I have time to look at my phone, I have time to, I have time to sketch. And, to that, along that line of thinking, you might have time to do other creative expressions as well. Do a little bit of writing, do some journaling, or whatever else. Chipping. It's a time to whittle in a way.
Well, I was just gonna say that's that word that we've used in the past, and I feel like we're coming due to do an episode on whittling again, a fresh look at whittling. I would almost dare to say we should do it next week. Got a topic for next week, maybe.
Okay, let's noodle on that. I think that could work. A fresh look at whittling.
All right. So thank you, Rob. I think we just did a podcast again. So this show is recorded every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central, and it is streamed live on YouTube and then collected as a podcast at patreon.com/leanintoart. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, thanks to everybody who's in the chat hanging out, and thanks to everybody for downloading, listening, and watching. Until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
Oh, thank you, Jerzy. And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger on Instagram.
Okay, bye. Whoops, wrong one. How about this one?
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I'm going to shut down the stream, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you.